Blake Lively has filed her amended complaint against Justin Baldoni, and she is claiming that she is not the only cast member from It Ends With Us to have complained about Justin. Now, a lot of people have a lot of questions. A lot of people want to see the receipts. We are going to get into what is included in this amended complaint, what Blake's team has had to say since it has been released, what Justin's team is saying, and what the public has had to say about everything. So this all started back in December when Blake Lively came out with a lawsuit against Justin Baldoni. In her complaint, she accused him of harassment and claimed that he retaliated against her by launching a smear campaign. This was a huge deal because Justin not only starred in the movie, but he also directed it and was one of the producers, as his production company, Wayfarer, was the production company behind this film. That meant that he had a lot of power on set, which made these allegations even more serious. But the plot thickens because Justin denied everything and even turned around and sued Blake and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. He basically said that it was all a ploy to ruin his reputation and take control of this film. Now, this lawsuit has taken many wild turns, and there's a couple more lawsuits in the mix, but this week things took another wild turn because Blake just filed an amended complaint where she claims that two other actresses on set of It Ends With Us also had issues with Justin. These women apparently confided in her about feeling uncomfortable around him, and they are now willing to testify in court. In this amended complaint, we learn that it is allegedly out of protection that we do not know their identities for certain, and also why we aren't seeing screenshots of their texts. As the amended complaint says, this amended complaint does not refer to certain witnesses by name, nor does it provide screenshots of their text messages. Importantly, however, these witnesses have given Ms. Lively permission to share the substance of their communications in this amended complaint as contained herein, and they will testify and produce responsive documents in the discovery process. So they will allegedly be providing this in discovery, but we are not seeing this right now. And in her complaint, she claims that Justin and his production company Wayfarer knew that Blake and others felt uncomfortable on set, but did not take accountability. Blake is alleging that instead of addressing the concerns, Justin allegedly used PR strategies, crisis management, and legal teams to silence Blake and twist the narrative, painting her as someone trying to take control of the film by fabricating misconduct claims. In her amended complaint, Blake says that her complaints were documented in 2023 as they happened, rather than being part of a later scheme to gain control over the movie. So she's trying to say, hey, I did speak out and say something and it was documented. So for everybody that is saying, why didn't she speak up until right now? Why are we just now hearing about this? She's claiming back in 2023, she did. We learn in the complaint that on May 24th, 2023, Miss Lively confided in a text to a woman who was a mutual friend of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, writing, "I was gonna invite you to set tomorrow. These people, whoa, it's like HR nuts today. The both of them, I wasn't expecting that turn. I mean, it's been present, but today I came home and cried." Further in the exchange, Miss Lively describes Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath as creeps. Like, keep your hormones to yourselves. This is not mine. I don't want it. I don't want you, gaze, or words, or tongue, or videos of your naked wife. Yeah, it's shocking, clowns. A few days later, on May 26, 2023, Miss Lively reported her concerns regarding unwelcome and inappropriate behavior by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, the chief executive officer of Wayfarer and producer of the film, to Sony employee Angie Giannetti, the film's representative for its distributor, Sony Pictures Entertainment. Over the following 3 days in May of 2023, another female cast member reported her own concerns regarding Mr. Baldoni's unwelcome behavior to both Miss Giannetti and one of the film's producers. Notwithstanding that female cast member's considerable reservations with coming forward, she nonetheless spoke up and conveyed her feelings that the work on the film was suffering as a result of Mr. Baldoni's behavior. Miss Giannetti shared those concerns with Wayfarer. On June 1st, 2023, Mr. Baldoni responded to that female cast member in writing, acknowledging that he was aware of her concerns and that adjustments would be made. Notwithstanding that promise, Wayfarer took no actions to investigate this reported conduct, nor did it implement any protections at that time. Just 1 week later, on June 8th, 2023, the same female cast member told Ms. Lively about her growing concerns with the conditions on set and that she found it difficult to talk to Mr. Baldoni. Ms. Lively responded that, I know I find it really hard to speak to him. I try to cover it with busyness, but not sure that covers what's going on. Later, another female cast member confided to Miss Lively that she too felt uncomfortable on set. All of this occurred and was documented in writing almost 1 year before the editing of the film began. As a result of guild strikes, production of the film shut down on or about June 14, 2023. In the midst of that shutdown on October 13, 2023, Miss Lively confided in a text to a female cast member that she was dreading going back to our film. "I keep getting hits of the experience in really upsetting ways." The female cast member expressed empathy for Miss Lively and confirmed similar feelings. Before returning to production following the guild strikes, based on Wayfarer's complete failure to investigate or address any of the complaints conveyed by Miss Lively and others, Miss Lively decided to speak up and require that Sony and Wayfarer agree to a set of protections to ensure a safe set for all of the cast and crew. Thus, in mid-November 2023, the parties agreed in writing to implement a list of protections enumerated in a contract entitled Protections for Return to Production, attached hereto as Exhibit A, which included 17 provisions designed to require Wayfarer to cease the on-set behavior of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. These provisions were designed to remedy the misconduct that Miss Lively and others had reported earlier that year. One of those provisions required an all-hands meeting to confirm and approve a plan for implementation of certain protections that will be adhered to for the physical and emotional safety of Miss Lively, her employees, and all cast and crew moving forward. Another provision required that an experienced producer, Todd Black, be brought in to oversee production and ensure that the requested protections were adhered to for the safety of all cast and crew members. Importantly, none of the requested protections were tied in any way to Miss Lively's creative input in the film and were made months before any discussions regarding the cut of the film. At that moment in time, with the completion of the film uncertain, Miss Lively did not request nor did she receive any creative rights, editing rights, credits, or any other role on the film beyond her role as an actress and executive producer. Everything she requested, as laid out in the document, was designed to ensure the safety and well-being of the cast and crew. In other words, at the precise moment in time when Miss Lively had maximum leverage prior to resuming production, she did not use that leverage to obtain anything other than protections for herself and others to ensure a safe work environment for all. The notion that she did all of this as some Byzantine plot to take control of the movie at some future point, which she did not do in any event, is absurd, and there is not a shred of evidence to support it. Which I will say, reading that, it is very interesting to hear that that is what they're saying, because the final cut of the film did end up being hers, and Justin did say that Blake took control of the wardrobe aspect of the film. So it is interesting that they're trying to say she wasn't trying to take control of the film back in 2023 when she made all these complaints. But I will say that, Justin was saying she was taking control of the wardrobe from the very beginning. But anyway, that is Blake's side. As her complaint continues, it says, after receiving the document, Wayfarer responded that Wayfarer, Sony, and production respectfully acknowledge that Miss Lively has concerns regarding safety, professionalism, and workplace culture. Although our perspective differs in many aspects, ensuring a safe environment for all is paramount. Irrespective of differing viewpoints regarding your outline requests, we find most of them not only reasonable but also essential for the benefit of all parties involved. Following Wayfarer's agreement, Miss Giannetti texted Miss Lively on November 29, 2023 and said, "So glad Todd Black is in it now and overseeing everything, but want to check in, offer anything I can. I know this has been beyond challenging to say the least. We at Studio want to support you best we can." Now, the part that the public has been tripped up over is the fact that Variety had previously reported back in August. Variety inquired of Sony whether any HR complaints had been filed against Baldoni during production and was told no. But in Blake's amended lawsuit, she alleges that there is documentation of these complaints having been made to a Sony employee named Angie Giannetti, and explained the HR of it all because, like I just said. Sony is saying that there were no HR complaints. Blake is saying that there were documentations made of the complaints of not only her, but other actresses on the set of It Ends With Us. So to get to the why there was no HR complaints about it, this is what the amended complaint says. Meanwhile, Miss Lively and a female cast member discussed a plan to speak with Angie Giannetti, the Sony executive assigned to the production. On May 26, 2023, that cast member reached out to Miss Lively to ask if she had talked to Miss Giannetti and informed Miss Lively that her manager knows Miss Giannetti and would be willing to offer support. Miss Lively responded that she had spoken with Miss Giannetti for 45 minutes. When Miss Lively reached out to Miss Giannetti, who was supportive, Miss Giannetti texted Miss Lively that what I did want to review/discuss feels very, very small in light of today's news. I'm so sorry, calling you in moments. In that conversation with Miss Giannetti on May 26, 2023, Miss Lively told her that she wanted to file an HR complaint about both Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's conduct. Although she was sympathetic, Miss Giannetti told Miss Lively that Sony, as the distributor of the film, was not empowered to oversee physical production, which included Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's behavior on set, and that such concerns must be raised with Wayfarer, the studio responsible for the production. Miss Lively was concerned with this response because Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath were the chairman and CEO of Wayfarer, and Mr. Baldoni was the director of the film. Miss Lively did not believe that either Mr. Baldoni or Mr. Heath would investigate their own alleged misconduct, and that disbelief was proven by subsequent events. In the meantime, following through on her prior text, the female cast member also had her managers contact Miss Giannetti to discuss that cast member's own discomfort with behavior by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath and its negative impact on the work. The remainder of the text exchange shows how both women shared concerns about speaking up and the potential consequences of doing so. Miss Lively shared that she needed to tread carefully to salvage some degree of chemistry and camaraderie with Justin, who's not only my director but love interest, and we're not even 1/3 of the way done with filming. The two women then recounted their discomfort with their experiences with Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, including one incident in which Mr. Baldoni secretly recorded them, and another in which he made an unwelcome remark about the female cast member's wardrobe. Miss Lively noted that Mr. Baldoni once asked her if he crossed a line, and when she said yes, he made a joke that he must have missed the harassment meeting. In her amended complaint, her saying that she never filed an HR complaint with Sony because this Miss Giannetti from Sony was saying, in order to file some HR complaint, you need to do it with Wayfarer. And Blake was like, I don't think that Justin and Jamie Heath are about to investigate themselves because these are the people that are running Wayfarer and I have a problem with them. So that seems to be why there is no HR complaint with Sony. Now, in her amended complaint, she also addresses the marketing of the film and claims that Justin deterred from the original talking points of the film in order to cover up for why him and the cast were not on speaking terms, promoting the film as a unit. In her complaint, she says, leading up to and in connection with the release of the film, during the summer of 2024, Miss Lively and fellow cast members promoted the film in accordance with the marketing plan created and delivered by the film's distributor, Sony, which is summarized in the talking points attached here to as Exhibit C. Miss Lively and other cast members were under a contractual obligation to engage in media, press marketing activities, and render promotional services in accordance with the marketing plan. The marketing plan directed the cast to focus more on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about DV. And to avoid talking about this film that makes it feel sad or heavy, it's a story of hope. Wayfarer endorsed this plan in an email to Sony on August 11, 2024. Mr. Heath described the marketing of the film to date as brilliant and fantastic and noted that we are not saying it's been inappropriately marketed in any way. In the days leading up to the film's release, Mr. Baldoni abruptly pivoted away from the film's marketing plan and the types of publicity activities in which he had previously participated. What the public did not know was that Mr. Baldoni and his team did so in an effort to explain why many of the film's cast and crew had unfollowed Mr. Baldoni on social media and were not appearing with him in public. To that end, he and his team used DV survivor content to protect his public image as described in further detail below. Other cast members contemporaneously observed Mr. Baldoni's pivot as it was happening. For example, a female cast member lamented to Miss Lively in a text on August 10, 2024 that Mr. Baldoni's marketing pivot was jeopardizing the success of the film, and op-in that the pivot would not work because it would eventually come out that Mr. Baldoni was using DV commentary to cover his own behavior. What the public also did not know was that this was the beginning of a multi-tiered plan that Mr. Baldoni and his team described as social manipulation designed to destroy Miss Lively's reputation. That plan was backed by virtually unlimited resources. Wayfarer's co-founder, co-chairman, and leading financier is multi-billionaire Steve Sarowitz, who divulged to a witness at the film's New York premiere on August 6, 2024 that he was prepared to spend $100 million to ruin the lives of Miss Lively and her family. In Blake's amended complaint, we also hear about the scene where the two are dancing and there wasn't meant to be any audio. In Blake's original complaint, she stated, on another occasion, Mr. Baldoni and Miss Lively were filming a slow dance scene for a montage in which no sound was recorded. Mr. Baldoni chose to let the camera roll and have them perform the scene, but did not act in character as Ryle. Instead, he spoke to Miss Lively out of character as himself. At one point, he leaned forward and slowly dragged his lips from her ear and down her neck as he said, "It smells so good." None of this was remotely in character or based on any dialogue in the script, and nothing needed to be said because, again, there was no sound. Mr. Baldoni was caressing Miss Lively with his mouth in a way that had nothing to do with their roles. When Miss Lively later objected to this behavior, Mr. Baldoni's response was, "I'm not even attracted to you." And then we saw Justin release the 9-minute unedited video footage of them recording this scene, where we see that Blake is trying to talk to Justin and says that she thinks that they should be talking in this scene to each other. Justin doesn't think that they should be talking in the scene. And now in the amended complaint from Blake, she has kind of changed up what she wrote about this particular situation. She said the video footage of the scene shows Miss Lively to be trapped, having to appear as though her character was happy and in love while the cameras were rolling. Miss Lively did not want to film additional takes on the scene, but continued to participate to be a team player and support the production in real time while simultaneously expressing and holding physical boundaries against Mr. Baldoni's advances. Miss Lively even referred to Mr. Baldoni as a sociopath at one point during the exchange. Notwithstanding Miss Lively's attempts at humor and levity, her words, actions, and body language all evince her lack of consent. When Miss Lively later objected to this behavior, Mr. Baldoni's response was, "I'm not even attracted to you." Mr. Baldoni did not provide notice or seek consent for any intimacy in advance. Instead, Mr. Baldoni chose to spontaneously improvise the scene while the cameras were rolling. During the filming, Mr. Baldoni repeatedly leaned in towards Miss Lively, attempting to kiss her, kissing her forehead, rubbing his face and mouth against her neck, putting his thumb to her mouth and flicking her lower lip, caressing her and telling her how good she smells. None of this took place while Mr. Baldoni was in character as Ryle because both the intimacy and dialogue departed from what had been agreed to in the script. Miss Lively was uncomfortable and kept leaning away and repeatedly suggesting and then begging that their characters should just talk. She tried to use levity and creative pleas to deflect the unwanted touching, hoping to get through this scene in a way that maintained a professional boundary without antagonizing Mr. Baldoni. Now, she also, in the amended complaint, addresses the claim of her not wanting to meet with the intimacy coordinator by saying Miss Lively complained about inappropriate behavior as early as May 2023, which occurred without an intimacy coordinator present, and which ultimately led to Wayfarer and Sony agreeing with Miss Lively that the consistent presence of an intimacy coordinator was not only reasonable, but essential. Contrary to defendants' assertions elsewhere, Miss Lively did not refuse to meet with the film's intimacy coordinator. She said she did not need to meet with her before production started because there was no intimate scenes in the immediate future, so they could talk once production began. Miss Lively did have a call with the intimacy coordinator during preparations. Those conversations happened close in time to the filming of the relevant scenes. Elsewhere, Mr. Baldoni has blamed the intimacy coordinator for supposedly writing graphic news scenes, including and talking about but Miss Lively consented to the scenes in the script as written at the time she signed on to the film, and Mr. Baldoni did not have consent to rewrite and add scenes, even if he did so with an intimacy coordinator. The purpose of the intimacy coordinator is to work with the actors to establish the appropriate boundaries based on what is in the script, not to rewrite the script to add more content to satisfy the director's demands. We later hear her describe some of the inappropriate behavior Justin exhibited on set and Jamie Heath as well, and we hear how her and others discussed these situations amongst each other. In the amended complaint, it says, on or about May 23rd, 2023, during a particularly difficult day on set, she and a female cast member talked to each other about how uncomfortable they were both feeling. That same cast member later reached out to Miss Lively by text to express appreciation and relief to be able to commiserate about their shared experiences. Miss Lively, upset with the inappropriate working conditions to which they were both being subjected, thanked her for her support in speaking up, writing, "Thank you for taking the time to say this and also for taking the time at your lunch. I felt untethered today and you grounded me. I'm sorry for what you've experienced and I wish I would have been there to witness it for you. And not that you need me to, but I sure would have loved to have run my mouth about it. Thank you for not only witnessing me, but for coming in with such eloquent and safe backup. You were able to be bold without being inflammatory, which is such a tightrope and I really appreciate it." On March 24th, 2024, both Miss Lively and the female cast member discussed how they were both feeling uneasy on set that day. Miss Lively confided that she felt like she needs to say something tonight after wrap, but that she's not sure how to navigate it, to which her cast member responded by offering words of support. Miss Lively and the female cast member discussed various examples of their uncomfortable and inappropriate interactions with Mr. Baldoni, and on May 28, 2023, Miss Lively explained that her concerns were not just with Mr. Baldoni's behavior, but the way that Mr. Baldoni behaved after being confronted with his line-crossing behavior. He keeps referencing it, or disconnects entirely, or gets snippy and impatient as a director. He was so huffy after the sexy thing, I felt awful for saying something. That same day, Miss Lively continued by observing that both she and the female cast member are not people who can't take a joke, or who can't work or understand blue. "We're not that fragile." Referencing Mr. Baldoni, she said, "You can't just record people without asking. You can't speak to people while not in character or while talking about a character. And if you overstep, you move on. It's the weirdness after that makes it feel bad. Like if we speak up, the vibes on set get funky and the work suffers." On May 29, 2023, the same female cast member texted Miss Lively to recount a conversation with one of the film's producers about the cast member's own concerns with Mr. Baldoni's and Mr. Heath's conduct, and that producer agreed that the situation needed to change. Later that day, the same producer also reached out to Miss Lively to say that she had spoken to Miss Giannetti, confirming her conversation with the female cast member about what had been occurring on set. Miss Lively thanked her for reaching out and replied that they would catch up later that week. The next day, June 1st, 2023, that producer reached out to Miss Lively again to praise her. Miss Lively responded with gratitude and thanked the producer for taking the space to step up where we need it. The producer in turn thanked Miss Lively because she helped make the space for them to finally start listening to me. So thank you. After unsuccessfully attempting to raise concerns with Sony, Miss Lively expressly told Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath that there were serious HR problems on set. Mr. Heath responded that they knew, implying that someone had mentioned to them that Miss Lively had raised concerns. In response, Mr. Heath told Miss Lively that he thought she had wanted to see the nude video of his wife. I will also add in some context here that this nude video was him showing Blake a video of his wife giving birth, and she just happened to be naked in it. She thought that he was showing her something else, and that is what Justin in his complaint is saying that she was shown. She also says in her amended complaint that that was what was shown to her, but that when he kind of showed it to her at first glance, she thought that it was something that rhymes with the vegetable corn. Also in the amended complaint, we hear about what Justin had to say after one of the female cast members had complained and he wrote something to her in writing. It says, on June 1st, 2024, the female cast member told Miss Lively that Mr. Baldoni had expressly acknowledged her concerns in writing, stating, "I recognize that the last few days of filming have been difficult, but I wanted you to know that the work is really great and I'm excited for what we're creating. Equally important is that I was made aware of your concerns. I wanted you to know that they are fully received. I hear you and adjustments will be made accordingly. The cast member conveyed to Miss Lively that she did not feel the acknowledgement was satisfactory. Miss Lively agreed. Now, Blake, in her amended complaint, alleges that Justin, Jamie, and Wayfarer engaged in harassment and failed to properly investigate workplace complaints, despite being aware of concerns raised by Blake and others in 2023. They did not take action to prevent inappropriate behavior or provide a safe reporting process. In January 2025, nearly 2 years after Blake first raised her concerns, and while litigation was ongoing, allegedly Wayfarer hired outside investigators to conduct what they called a neutral investigation. However, the amended complaint alleges the investigation was fully controlled by Wayfarer, including its budget, access to information, and whether any findings would be made public. The investigators admitted that if the alleged incidents occurred, it would point to serious issues within Wayfarer, but they would not be making any recommendations for corrective action. She is claiming the investigation is a sham, designed to protect Wayfarer rather than uncover the truth, as the company could withhold or manipulate the findings. She also points out that Wayfarer's delay in launching an investigation is an admission of its failure to act back in 2023 when these complaints were first brought to their attention. Now, in the amended complaint, we get to the part where Blake is discussing the allegations that she took over the movie, and specifically that she has faked all these allegations in order to have some leverage over Justin and take over this movie because he would be afraid to say no to her because of all of this. So she's saying that that is not true, what is being said about her in this. And her amended complaint says, Mr. Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties have falsely claimed that Miss Lively took over the movie as a self-aggrandizing power play. The defendant's entire accusation would rely on Miss Lively and others fabricating malicious claims nearly a year before an edit, though Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath repeatedly engaged in inappropriate behavior with witnesses and corroborators in real time. And then, even more complicated, their accusation would have required Miss Lively to rely on the hope that the Wayfarer parties would sign a document acknowledging and agreeing to cease the detailed and specific conduct described in her claims, after writing letters of apology to other female casts 8 months before. And also, most critically, the supposed master plan they absurdly accused Miss Lively of would rely on the hope that Wayfarer would never, in the 1.5-year process, launch an HR investigation to clear their innocent names, but instead allow their film to be stolen from them. The assertion Miss Lively bullied her way into edit room is not only false, but it was not even necessary. If she was not happy with the film, she could have easily just moved on to her next project. She had offers for directing jobs before, during, and since the film. If she wanted to direct, she could do that at any time, and without having to deal with the Wayfarer parties, whom she very clearly wanted nothing to do with. The story of the edit of the film is not relevant to Miss Lively's claims of harassment and retaliation. It's a red herring designed to distract the public from the grave misconduct by the defendants. The Sony cut is the film that was chosen to be released in theaters. Miss Lively led the Sony cut with their support, working in close collaboration with Sony and Colleen Hoover. Sony released the film's trailer on May 16, 2024. The next day, a Sony executive wrote Miss Lively about the huge response from the public to that release, calling it a beautiful start and thanking Miss Lively for her contributions. Now, I will say a lot of people haven't been reacting well to this particular part of the amended complaint because they just don't think that she defended herself stealing this movie, because she doesn't detail how or why she decided to even hire her own editors to cut a version of the film. So she doesn't exactly defend her name in, trying to take over the movie, that's for sure. She's definitely trying to defend that she isn't saying that she was harassed for the motive of taking over the film, but it doesn't seem like she's exactly denying taking over the film. The amended complaint continues, the story Mr. Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties have told since Miss Lively filed her opening complaint is completely at odds with their behavior when trying to produce and market the film. Before Miss Lively sued, Mr. Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties were perfectly happy to exploit Miss Lively's star power as well as her actress to A-level filmmakers, editors, and more. And notwithstanding their complaints today that Miss Lively supposedly seized control of Mr. Baldoni's film, that did not stop Mr. Baldoni from proudly marketing the film as his work on release. Indeed, although Mr. Baldoni privately confessed that he did not see the final cut of the film until the premiere, he repeatedly and publicly took credit for the film, while Miss Lively generally downplayed her contributions. And I will say once again that the public didn't love this part of the complaint because they felt like she was trying to get some credit in there, like on the carpet when she said that her husband had rewrote the rooftop scene. And a lot of people were just like feeling as though she had taken over the movie just based off of the interviews that she was doing on the red carpet. Now, in talking about how Justin hired a PR crisis management team, she is alleging that he hired them to plant stories and tank her reputation in case she were to come out publicly about her complaints about him. Texts between his PR team are included in her amended complaint and show his team texting saying, "You can of course do that, but I do think he needs to know. I'm going to confidently send you something he's texting me and Jamie on the side just to arm you before this call. I think you guys need to be tough and show the strength of what you guys can do in these scenarios. He wants to feel like she can be buried." Melissa Nathan texted back and said, "Of course, but you know, when we send over documents, we can't send over the work we will or could do because that could get us in a lot of trouble. We can't write it down to him. We can't write, 'We will destroy her. We will go to this. We will do this. We will do this. We will do this.' Of course not, but I told him that's the point of talking through." Melissa says, "He has to look at it as an information document for us to be armed with. That's all. Imagine if a document saying all the things he wants ended up in the wrong hands." Another set of texts show his publicist Jennifer Abel texting PR crisis manager Melissa Nathan saying, "I'm having reckless thoughts of wanting to plant pieces this week of how horrible Blake is to work with. Just to get ahead of it, she's putting us through hell." Melissa says, "Same. Am I already off the record? Spoke to the editor of Daily Mail because she's my friend. She's ready when we are." In her amended complaint, Blake also included, "The next day, even though Miss Nathan and Tag had already begun performing work on behalf of Wayfarer and Mr. Baldoni, Miss Nathan texted a text chain with Miss Abel and Mr. Heath, providing pricing quotes ranging from $75,000 to $175,000 for Tag's crisis mitigation services. Quote 1, $175K. This will be for a 3 to 4 month period and includes website to discuss full Reddit, full social account takedowns, full social crisis team on hand for anything, engage with audiences in the right way, start threads of theories to discuss. This is the way to be fully 100% protected. Quote 2, $25K per month, minimum 3 months, as it needs to seed same as above. This will be for creation of social fan engagement to go back and forth with any negative accounts, helping to change narrative and stay on track." Miss Nathan stated, "All of this will be most importantly untraceable. There is a lot more to both of these quotes, but easier to discuss via phone in terms of capabilities and what I have personally experienced in and out of crisis scenarios." And we see the text included. And you guys, this is honestly so much to process. In my mind, I think a lot of people are, not happy with Blake and how she promoted It Ends With Us. And if it's true that Justin and his team planted negative stories and had all these accounts to comment negative things about Blake in order to amplify Justin and make him look really good, I do think that it is true people still didn't love the way that Blake chose to promote the movie. I think that she harmed her own reputation in that manner. And okay, maybe Justin and his team assisted in making the story take off or even making the conversation louder. But I do believe that people are genuinely unhappy with how she promoted the movie, even if, she was told by Sony that's how she was going to promote the movie. I think that there were just so many eyes on her and Justin when this movie came out, because before anything, negative started coming out about Blake and how she was even marketing the movie, people were wondering, why isn't the cast doing promo with Justin? Why are people unfollowing Justin? And so people were really looking at the both of them like, all right, who's in the wrong here? What happened? They were listening closely to the interviews and they started to not like what Blake was doing. And at the same time, she was promoting her hair care line. And there were just a lot of things that were happening that people didn't love. Yes, Justin hired this crisis PR management team and, she's alleging that they planted things to, ruin her reputation. And though yeah, they could have done that. I think that her cancellation, at least, people being upset at her in some capacity, would have happened without Justin hiring those people just because they didn't like the way she was promoting the movie. I will say that. But since her amended complaint has come out, Justin's lawyer has, of course, spoken to the press. Brian Friedman, a lawyer for Mr. Baldoni, said in a statement, her underwhelming amended complaint is filled with substantial hearsay of unnamed persons who are clearly no longer willing to come forward or publicly support her claims. Since documents do not lie and people do, the upcoming depositions of those who initially supported Ms. Lively's false claims and those who are witnesses to her own behavior will be enlightening. Mr. Friedman continued, what is truly uncomfortable here is Ms. Lively's lack of actual evidence. In the same New York Times article, Ms. Lively's lawyers, Ezra Hudson and Mike Gottlieb, said in a statement that the amended complaint includes significant contemporaneous evidence supporting Ms. Lively's claims and that she was not alone in raising those concerns. In addition to the new claims from the actress, the complaint included a new defamation claim that said Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, and their associates had used media platforms to overwhelm and confuse the public's understanding of Ms. Lively's allegations and to drive negative sentiment against Ms. Lively and anyone who supports her or speaks out against Mr. Baldoni. So that is what has been said as of right now since the amended lawsuit has been made public. This is obviously a lot of information to digest, and I want to know what you guys think about all of this because we're hearing one side from Justin, we're hearing one side from Blake, and it's not really lining up, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.